Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Cast Iron. We've been on a bit of a break because I dropped a clanger and accidentally deleted everything in my audio folder. So, yeah, welcome back. This is going to be a double episode.
It's not going to be a dull episode. It's going to be an awesome episode.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a different sort of layout as to what we're normally used to. So, we've established our previous method of going through an album track by track, but this time we're gonna take a little retrospective look about what we had recorded prior as two separate long episodes, and sort of condense them down into a little bit more of a retrospective look at what we were talking about. This is going to be a little bit more casual as things go, and we're also dealing with a double whammy of Japanese bands. So to kick things off, we are dealing with Dir En Grey's Uroboros.
First of all, you need to tell people who you are.
Indeed, I should do that.
They might not know.
I am Lewis Clark. I run a website called UK Scum Scene, and I write about rock and metal. I'm considerably less metal looking at the moment because over the time since we've been away, I've decided to lop off all my hair, which is a bit of a. It's more of a circumstance than a choice. Because I'm currently job seeking, so I kind of wanted to look a little bit smarter.
That's fair enough.
So
and I am Alan Williamson. I'm the editor-in-chief of the video game culture magazine 5 out of 10, and I got my hair cut extremely short when I was about 20 years old. You'll look better for it, honestly. you might have. I know now it feels like you've lost a limb, and okay, you've made a bit of wig money, but out of me and my three brothers, three of us had long hair at one point, and there's only one holdout, and he's probably listening to this. So Paul, it's time to get a haircut. Even Lewis got a haircut. He's a respectable human again.
Well, I am regretting it a little bit, but there you go. It's just that's what 5 years of hair growth does to you, I suppose. You get used to it a little bit, don't you? Well,
speaking of Dir En Grey, when I went to the Dir En Grey gig, you could headbang and I couldn't because I don't have the hair for it anymore. So.
Yeah, I did indeed. Did I annoy you? Did I whip you?
No, you didn't do what my mate Kev always used to do in the Rock Bar Opium in Edinburgh and whip Jack Daniels and Coke into my face. No. It's just not the same having short hair going to metal gigs anymore. You just end up like one of those drinking birds, bobbing back and forward, getting a sore neck.
It's easier to give yourself a bit of whiplash when you don't have the give of the hair to sort of...
That's why you have it. It's for practical safety reasons.
Oh, yeah, completely. Anyway, let's stop talking about hair and let's talk about Dir En Grey. Because Uroboros is possibly one of my favourite metal albums. This is a progressive metal record. So it kind of touches on an awful lot of styles. I'd say predominantly it is... quite a heavy rock sound with flourishes of, I don't know, metalcore, death a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's got the kind of. Whenever I think about what prog metal is, I typically think about intricate drum tracks, songs that have multiple movements to them, so they're not just like, here's the song, here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's a solo, here's a chorus, see you later. Oh, it's key change, oh how exciting. It tends to be like you get a slower build up to songs, you find the songs are moving from your kind of 3-4 minute rock staples to things that are much longer. You can get into 7 or 8 minute movements. If you're a Dream Theater, that's about 30 minutes, I think, is the longest of one of their songs, which is the length of a Bad Religion album.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's generally the differences you're dealing with on the more progressive side of things. But yeah, that's just generally something that
takes a bit of listening. So it's a little bit more meat to it. It's not necessarily something you could casually just sit down and rock out to. It's not road trip music.
No,
but
not
it
at all.
is something with a bit more depth that you should lie down, I don't know, maybe on a long coach trip, and maybe on a bed, turn the lights off, get your favourite headphones on, chill out, glass of your favourite beverage, and that's ideal prog metal listening conditions.
And I would also say, I think it's not unfair to say this, but I think prog metal music, progressive music in general, is definitely more album orientated over single orientated. So it's generally nicer to sit these things out from track one to wherever it finishes, because they're generally more of a cohesive.
Yeah,
piece.
and you often get concept albums as well.
Indeed,
that is a very prog rocky thing, even from the days of Jethro Tull and Yes and bands like that up to kind of modern prog metal stuff. But yeah, this is the second time we're talking about this album, and what's interesting is that normally whenever we do an episode, I listen to an album intensely, and then this one coincided with the Dir En Grey gig we went to, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end. But you listen to an album over and over and over, the gig's over, and then you go, okay, I'm going to listen to something else now. But I didn't. On the way home on the bus, I listened to Uroboros again.
Yeah. I think I definitely put on their latest album, Arsh, afterwards.
I think
as well, or Arch.
This album's actually gone up in my estimation since the last 2 months, so it's interesting to do this double take on it, because I think I like it
definitely.
even more, and I think the highest compliment I could pay is that if you asked me what like my kind of top 3 metal albums were, I would think about this one. I wouldn't necessarily include it, but I would think about it, and that's pretty good going for a band I hadn't heard of until the middle of last year.
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? Definitely after the gig as well, because they were touring Arch, which is the latest record. This album, definitely, again, it's more of a cohesive thing. Arch definitely sort of ebbs and flows, and I'd say there are moments where it doesn't feel quite as well structured in a weird way, that album. Well, not that there isn't good moments on it. There are some fantastic moments on it, but Uroboros, in comparison, is just like a wall-to-wall
it's a
hit fest,
it's a
really.
Sonic assault,
in the
and we do love Sonic.
Yeah, there you go.
But I guess like you've got 4 main important Dir En Grey albums, or at least the ones I've listened to. You've got The Marrow of a Bone, which is their first move into heavier music. Then you've got Uroboros, then you've got Dum Spero Spero, or Spero Spero, I can't remember which way it is. And then you have Arch, which is the latest one. I think any of those are a good starting point, but this is, to me, the magnum opus. This is when it all kind of comes together. And you get that with bands.
Very much so.
If you want to talk about other prog metal bands, you've got somebody like Dream Theater that released Metropolis Part 2, which is this amazing conceptual kind of them at their peak, and then it went a bit off the deep end, and things get a little bit too extreme.
Yeah.
It's almost like you are, I don't know, it's like if you're orbiting around the sun or something, and you've just hit the perfect point in that orbit where everything's coalesced, and you're you're drifting out, you're going too fast, oh no, and then it gets a little bit too, it's not quite as cohesive, like you said about Arch.
Yeah.
It's not as cohesive a record. I'm just rambling here. Please stop me.
It's fine. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the record then, because the album was originally released in sort of 2 different formats, actually. So the original Japanese release is obviously a completely Japanese record, whereas even though it was released at the same time, the Western release replaces 2 of the songs with English language versions, which we definitely sort of had a bit of a qualm with last time we were speaking about this, because I think the famous quote that you picked up on Wikipedia was that Dir En Grey have sort of won their audience by not speaking English, and the English language tracks on this do feel like a bit of a cop-out.
Okay, here's what I found off Wikipedia, because I've got it up again. It was several professional reviews have placed the use of Japanese as something that will withhold the band from mainstream popularity, but some approve of the band's consistency with their native language. So, yes, we are 2 of the people that approve of the band's consistency with their native language. What the 2 tracks, one of them is Glass Skin. What is the other track that has an English equivalent?
I'm pretty sure it's Dozing Green.
Oh, okay. Oh, why would you? So, I made kind of extensive notes in this. Now, one of the things I talked about in our first take, and I'm not going to keep referring to that because only you and I understand it, is I talked a little bit about opera. I was saying that metal lyrics and metal vocalists are interpretive more than other genres, and most metal lyrics are pretty rubbish. And it was when I was listening to the song Red Soil, which has English lyrics in both releases, I didn't realise that they were actually in English, and I don't think that the lyrics matter, and this is just the way metal is. We don't understand death growls. Most metal lyrics are terrible, apart from, I made 2 notable exceptions of Anders Frieden from In Flames, I think is good. I think Mikael Åkerfeldt from Opeth is a good lyricist. But similar to opera. So between take 1 and take 2, I went to Barcelona and stayed there for a week. It was very nice, thanks for asking. And one night we went to the opera. and we had the sort of small retinue of performers, and they were doing pieces from like Don Giovanni and Faust and things like that. And it was exactly what I thought, was that I was able to enjoy those opera songs, and I was able to enjoy through the performance and the expression of the lyrics. I knew what was going on, had a rough gist of it, right? It's exactly the same with Dir En Grey lyrics. You don't need to understand those lyrics. You don't need a degree in Japanese to derive meaning and enjoyment from it. It's the same way you don't need to speak Italian to enjoy an opera. So I was quite glad that I was vindicated in that original point. It is true. You can enjoy opera. I can, but you can't. You know, to each their own.
But yeah, no, totally. And again, I'm completely in agreement with you. I think the Japanese lyrics create a certain atmosphere and a certain feeling that is lost, unfortunately, in the I don't want to say American, the English lyrics.
You do not want to say American. This is a British podcast.
Don't know why I went for that, but there you go. So yeah, and I think as well, like you picked up on the English lyrics that are in both versions of Red Soil. I think again, because it's coming via a Japanese speaking voice, the inflection is incredibly different to what you'd normally expect, and I think that also masks the fact that they are English lyrics, and you just completely rise over the fact, because the way that it's Kyo is the main lyricist and vocalist for Dir En Grey sings is just absolutely incredible, like a really, really virtuistic performance from I think one of my favourite, I think probably actually my favourite metal vocalist of all time. Stylistically, he is very similar to Mike Patton in that he uses lots of different sounds and effects and has an incredibly large vocal range. He can go from pretty high, almost woman-like screams to a really low sort of guttural growl and everything in between. A really lovely clean vocalist as well.
He's very good. He's very good clean vocalist. Yeah, he's very good at, as you say, that dynamic range and moving from one to the other flawlessly. It's not stilted. It's very natural.
Yeah, completely.
And I think that's probably where the English lyric suffers, because they're not natural. In the same way that if I tried to sing in Japanese, which I'm not going to try, but because I did that last time and it was a big mistake. But Japanese is a good language for this album. It's got a really natural cadence to it, and some of the songs like Toguro, that we probably won't talk about in much detail. It's a song I really like. It's a slow-paced song with a lot of groove, but it's got that and Japanese puts an even stress on every syllable, so you get this kind of drum-like repetition, and I really like that with Japanese. And then I found my English and Japanese transliterations. So Glass Skin is one. The English lyrics are "I open up my wings of glass." Now, the original Japanese is Kageki no Namida Yori, which means emptier still than any tears of comedy, which is a lot more interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
And the English version feels really forced. It's like me writing a song in German. I know what the words mean, but the poetry's gone, and the sentiment has changed. I also wrote, they better play this in Japanese at the gig, and actually they didn't play it at all. So,
well, there you go.
Dodge that bullet, eh?
We actually only got one song off Uroboros in the end at the gig. We got Red Soil, which, don't get me wrong, one of my favourite songs of the album, so I'm glad to have at least heard something. But yeah, it's let's talk about this in a little bit of a structured way.
Okay.
So
why not?
The album begins
since we're mixing things up this time.
The album begins with Sabir, which is essentially an introduction track, very sort of creepy, almost horror-esque song that sounds like something is foreboding in the distance, sort of creeping in. Yeah. And that is altered for some reason on the remastered and expanded version to be an awful lot longer. It starts with sort of the sounds of clocks and chimes and things, and creates a bit more atmosphere, and generally goes on, I don't know, I don't know whether it needs to go on longer.
You get the Mongolian flute singing coming in and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah, there's lots of weird effects to it. But basically, they set up a really dark atmosphere for the record, and it's quite a strong opening, actually, considering it is essentially just an introduction. Then things lead into Venushka, which I think is an absolute masterpiece.
It's a banger. It's a banger.
9.5 minutes long. Lots of really interesting movements. It really a gorgeous ebb and flow through this song. It sort of starts off very sort of gentle and quiet, and builds itself up to a big crescendo, and then sort of dips away again, and it spends a little bit of time. So it's a lovely.
It's really like dramatic song. And atmospheric. You've got a nice proggy opening, and then it goes into this furious breakdown after the first chorus. And it's the whole album in microcosm. And if somebody asks
very much so, yeah.
What's prog metal? What's all that about? You just sit them down, headphones on, listen to Venushka, and then when they're finished, go,
"Yep,
any questions?" And they'll say, "What the hell was that?" But it's an epic song, and there's a lot to love. And I guess if you're not feeling it by the end of this song, then the rest of the album is probably going to be a bit of a slog. But you should enjoy it because it's a good song, and we're right and you're wrong.
Nobody's right and nobody's wrong, Alan. I want to stress that you can like whatever the hell you want.
As long as you can like whatever you want, as long as it's this.
No, bad, Alan. Right. But yes, that is Venushka. That is a really good example of what Dir En Grey can do. It very much sort of sums the band up, and what they're about in a single song. And it's a strange one as well, because what with it being getting on for 10 minutes, it doesn't feel like it's getting on for 10 minutes. It really does keep your interest for the entire time. It doesn't feel like it sags at any given point. A really good song. Yeah, but yeah, some other highlights. The track that follows it, Red Soil, which we just did talk about earlier on, is pretty much your sort of pop Dir En Grey, I suppose, in a weird way, in that it's more of it's a 3.5 minute track, and a little bit more condensed.
It's still metally. It's still metally.
More, yeah, definitely, but follows more of a traditional song structure as opposed to a progressive one. And those songs do crop up throughout the album. Glass Skin, in particular, is actually a very good example of that. While it is an amazingly beautiful and ethereal track with this lovely piano that runs through it, it is very much structured as a pop song. There is a chorus, a verse, a chorus. It's and a bridge and things. It's just very traditional in its structure, but my word, is that a gorgeous song.
It's lovely. Beauty. It was the one that got me into it. I think you sent me a link to it and said, "Get a load of this," basically.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you. You're great. One thing that's ruined in the re-recording is we can't guess each other's favourite songs. So Lewis already knows that my favourite song is Glass Skin. But I would be tempted to mix it up just to make you doubt your own memories. But anyway, it's my favourite track on it. There's a lot to love in this, and there's very few songs I would skip on it, which is unusual for me. But it's a really, really beautiful song, really beautiful piano, lovely guitar as well. It kind of slinks about a bit. It's not as foremost in the mix compared to the drums and the piano, and the guitars there in the background, really just harmonizing with the vocals. It's really, really beautiful. And I think from the moment I first heard that song, I knew it was going to be my favorite Dir En Grey song, or at least a very high benchmark. One of the other songs we should talk about, since we've mentioned Kyu's vocals, is Dokuko, which is a song after Red Soil. Dokuko to Serena. It's got it's worth listening to just because the singing at the end is so good. So I love Kyo singing at the end of Dokuko, and you can really feel the emotion and the tension building throughout the song. And to re-emphasize, you do not need to understand Japanese to understand he's singing his lungs out. But yeah,
there is definitely some heart on sleeve moments on this record. It's got to be said, and I do like the fact as well that he definitely favours in crescendos and things like that. He sort of goes he goes up an octave instead of going instead of key change, which just gives it a little bit more impact. You know, he sounds a lot more aggressive and like he cares. And you know, that's one of the things I really value in music is performances that sound like the people behind it actually care about the music.
He's also got the vocal range to do that. I mean, the only other people I could think of that could pull off an entire octave jump like that would be people like Willow. Possibly somebody like Bruce Dickinson or Rob Halford could probably do it, but I think Keogh's got a good enough set of pipes to pull that off, and he's really playing to his strengths.
Oh, definitely. And also, while we're talking about favourite tracks, I'd like to bring up Roiketsu no Reciba, which is track 8 on the original version.
You hardly ever talk about it.
I do. So, yeah, I'm sure Alan's completely sick to death of this by now, but Roiketsu is actually one of the heavier songs on the record. I do like me a bit of the loud. And, it's an interesting one as well, because there's a really sort of a ethereal, slow breakdown where it becomes, I want to say, very Eastern in its sound, very traditionally Japanese. It's got these lovely sort of flourishes of like chimes and stuff are happening.
You never really know what's going to happen next in this album. But
completely.
At the same time, there's all this drive, metallic crunch, a bit of anger and passion. There's also a lot of musical consistency to it, and you're getting a lot of variation. But like, the heck's that track doing there? It's got a lovely consistency. Roiketsu to me is, if Glass Skin is Dir En Grey doing a bit of him, this is them doing a bit of Sixth. And that's probably why you like it so much.
There you go.
But I like it too.
But yeah, the only other things I'd like to pick up on are the track that follows it is Wariyami Tote, which is another long track on the album. This is a 7-minute, and I suppose it's almost like a bit of a blend of Venushka and Glass Skin in that it's very delicate, almost acoustic start.
I mean, this song's more of a ballad than a epic prog metal song. This is much more of.
You don't get as many movements in this one, but as it progresses, again, lovely crescendo, a big octave change at the end, and just a gorgeous song. If you want some additional viewing after this, I would highly recommend going and finding the version of this that was performed at the Budokan for the Uroboros tour, because they opened the show with it, and it's a really atmospheric and really sort of beautiful performance, because it's very much a musician's performance. There's not really as much of a theatrical element to it as much as it is you watching a very good, strong set of musicians perform their absolute heart out. A really, really interesting one, and they sort of they perform behind like a screen at the start, so you can sort of
like
see
shadow puppets.
Yeah, you can see their silhouettes to begin with, and then as the light on the stage is brought in, the screen is actually transparent, and then you slowly reveal the band as the song goes on. It's really a really interesting way of dealing with it, because obviously, that's more of a musician's song than a theatrical performance song.
Yeah, than a hard rock banger.
Yeah, definitely.
Whenever you said further viewing, I had this vision of somebody just staring at their mobile phone while the podcast was playing, going, where's all the video? I think my phone's broken. But yes, that viewing was correct. I wasn't saying the wrong word when I should have said listening. You caught me off guard, but you brought me back.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, the only other song I really like to talk about in any sort of depth is Dozing Green, because it's one of the singles as well. Mm-hmm. Again, this is more of a rock song than a metal song. It's very sort of anthemic, a nice big riff to it, and a big chorus as well. Just a real highlight as well. A really good. this is bringing itself to the end now. I think this is the penultimate track, and to have to have this album ebb and flow in such a way that you're still getting such fantastically hooky songs at this late in the game is
very
really
hymny again. It's another hymny kind of hook.
I mean, there's always going to be a comparison there because there's a very much of a goth element to both bands. But
another easily one of the best songs in the album. Makes you wait a little while to get there. A lot of good dynamic bits where it cuts out just before the chorus and then it explodes into it.
Yeah.
Just very, very strong. I mean, one of the things is that normally we do a blow by blow, and it's it's kind of a shame that we don't get to do that for this one because most of the tracks are really excellent and really worthy of discussion.
I can't stress that enough. This needs to be listened to as an album.
If you've got to this point and you've thought, maybe I should be listening to this, I would recommend you go back and do that. In fact, just blow away the memories of this podcast, listen to the whole album, and then listen to this again because it's a really beloved album, and it won me over so quickly. It was really very much my cup of tea. Even the last track's good. Which is
completely
inconvenient ideal. Really great singing. One of the best choruses in the album. It ends with a bang, but it's an appropriate restrained level of bang for such a long and varied album.
Yeah, and thematically as well, it feels a little bit more like it gives you some sort of hope as well. It's a lovely way to end the record because so much of it is very sort of dark and deprived, and then you get these odd flourishes of sort of like moroseness, I suppose is the word. And then this last track is just a really lovely sort of like fills me with hope. It's got some nice.
Life's not so bad.
Yeah. It's got a bit of a positive kick to that one.
Okay, so why don't we talk about? There's not just two versions of this in terms of alternate lyric editions. There's two releases. There's the original and then there's the remastered and expanded. If you want a immediate response, I would just listen to the remastered one. If you are Lewis levels of hardcore and you've got your Dir En Grey boxer shorts on and your collection of vinyl behind you, you might want to try both and compare the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one actually because I do really like the remastered and expanded version. The mix is quite, it's definitely noticeably different. There's more of a sort of, there's less. It sounds like you're in a room with the band instead of a hall. There's less reverb to it in general, and the drums definitely have a little bit more of a finiteness to them, whereas the original version is, the drummer hits the snare and you can hear it reverberate across the room for ages.
I mean, it's... I am not a big fan of mega reverb unless it is the police. Because it's Regatta de Blanc or whatever it is. It's got some serious reverb in the drum kit, but I just think it works really well for that album and that kind of clicky-clacky, snappy, clean sound to it. For this kind of album, I just generally prefer the remastered mix.
I mean, I think there is essentially a mix for everybody in this regard.
There's a mix for all sorts.
Because I think to some degrees I do really like the reverb. I think it does give it some atmosphere. It's nice to hear a band sound quite huge in a strange way. It really does make the thing sound a little bit more grand. But the remastered version, for all intents and purposes, is a fantastic mix as well. It just feels like everything's a little bit closer to you. It's really sort of not intense. Intimate is the word I want to go for.
That's what I like it, up close and intimate. And also, this is a good mix of an album.
Oh, totally, completely. The main differences are, we've already spoken about the fact that Sabir is longer on the remastered expanded version. I think it's a good couple of minutes longer, actually.
Yeah.
But there are some additional songs that have been flourished, I suppose, in the months there. So
Garnished.
Yeah. So the first appearance is Hydra 666, which comes in at track 10. That was originally released on the band's first or second album, actually, and it's actually a re-recording of the song in their sort of a new style, I suppose, because the band's sound has progressed quite heavily since the earlier records. Hence the 666 edition at the end. It's not just a nod to Satan. It is actually just to differentiate the two versions.
It's not your father's Hydra.
Yeah, there you go. It's a good song. I do like it a lot, but it's more of an atmospheric track. There isn't as many hooks to it. It definitely it creates more of an interesting sort of gothy atmosphere, I suppose. It's quite a dark track, not as instantly catchy as some of the other stuff on the record, but definitely an interesting inclusion.
It's all right, but it's a bit of a skipper.
Yeah, that's the thing. That is a little bit of the thing that sort of drags the remastered version down for me a little bit, because even though I do love the mix, some of these additions just don't feel necessary. Mm-hmm. And the other big one is there is a sort of an introduction to Bugaboo now called Bugaboo Respira, and it is essentially just Kyo in the recording booth sort of humming to himself in a weird way and sort of tapping the desk, it sounds like. Again, sort of there to just create a bit of atmosphere, but highly unnecessary, I think. The song itself, Bugaboo, is actually a very creepy sort of foreboding track anyway. Yeah. Like that way it sort of comes in with that really sort of glassy guitar, which I really like. It's just, a really interesting little track. But
why did they re-include that? Oh, Kyo, your mic's on, mate. Stop humming. Your mic's on. That's okay. Well, we'll cut this later.
But yeah, it's not much in the way of in additions, but it just feels a little bit unnecessary when the record was just such a flawless run from start to finish to begin with. Just to add these little things just for the sake of it, just feel a little bit sort of haphazard, I suppose, is what I'm going for.
It's like an expanded Game of the Year edition, and they've put in far too much extra content.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of the band, more is certainly no bad thing whatsoever. But it's just when you think about the running order and the original mix of the album, it's just why muck around with perfection?
Absolutely. But hey, it was your choice to get that haircut, and you'll have to live with the consequences. It'll grow back.
Yeah, that is a very good point. But yeah, there you go. That is Uroboros by Dir En Grey. A rather fantastic prog metal record. If you would like to do some further listening in this genre, I would highly recommend an album called Metazoa by an American band called Cormorant, also in a very sort of similar progressive metal mould. I'd say it touches a little bit more on the Scandinavian side of things, so if you like your In Flames as well, it's definitely worth listening to, because the vocal style in particular definitely reminds me of Anders Frieden.
For better or worse?
Definitely for better.
Just to clarify, I think he's a very good lyricist. I don't necessarily think he's the best vocalist.
It depends on how you like your metal vocals, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm a big fan of screamers, so Anders totally hits the nail for me. But yeah, if you're a fan of singers, then there isn't as much.
If you're a fan of critters, there's always Engelbert Humperdinck.
There isn't as much melody to Anders' voice, so there you go. And Alan, what did you have to recommend?
I thought if you wanted to go down the prog metal track, as I think you should, because I'm a big fan of the genre. There's lots of bands on offer. You could have who's good. You could Dream Theater, Devin Townsend Project, Tool. I'm going to recommend Dream Theater's Octavarium, which is not my favourite Dream Theater album, but I think it's a particularly accessible one. It's also have a similar compositional style to Uroboros. Now, Octavarium is an 8-track album that loops back on itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Uroboros, got that snake eating itself, flips back.
Yep.
See
Ah,
what I
there you
did there?
go. Yeah,
See
very clever.
But again, it's got a lot of varied styles. It's got a ballad that sounds a bit like something U2 would record, and then you've got some extremely heavy tracks, like Panic Attack, which is one of their most famously noodly bass lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really good introduction to the band, and another really good introduction to prog metal that has just the right level of heaviness mixed with cheesiness that makes the perfect prog metal album. That's one thing about this. Uroboros and Dir En Grey stuff doesn't have that cheese that you often get with American prog metal bands, like your Dream Theaters, Queensryche, Fate's Warning, those kind of bands.
No, it's very much what you get is what you know what you
quite
get. It's very face
straight
value
list,
in a weird way. A very, very good record. Nice to finally find a record that we both agree on as well. I enjoy that.
I'm sure there will be more, but if there aren't, what a beautiful moment this was.
A fantastic record. Let's talk about the gig, because we didn't get to obviously do that last time, and I should stop talking about last time because nobody's going to hear that. But so we went to go and see Dir En Grey on the Arch tour, and this is actually the first time I've ever seen Dir En Grey. Despite being one of my favourite bands, I thought it was about time I ticked them off the bucket list. And it was a bit of a strange gig, because I understand that when you're writing new music, you obviously want to play said new music. But when you have, close to I think they've got 9 records under their belt now, 8 or 9, and with that amount of discography behind you, you'd like to see a little bit more of a diverse sort of, touch upon lots of things. Whereas it was a very they pretty much played Arch in full, and we got a 3-song. What's the word?
Encore.
Thank you. Which was, nice. At least we got some stuff from different records, but it would have just been nice to have heard a little bit more of a cross section of the band's stuff, because they are a very, very diverse band. And from all the live DVDs and things I've got of the band, they're not adverse to playing stuff from earlier records and sort of putting their new spin on it, which we kind of did get as well, because we got one of the tracks off Withering to Death, and they definitely played it like one of the heaviest versions I've ever heard of it. I'm trying to remember the name of the song now. I'm going to quickly look that up.
Okay, so I also enjoyed the gig. The support act were dreadful, though.
Yeah, that was a bit of a strange choice.
The Rise of the North Star.
That was the one.
And I felt like we'd been in this turn of the millennium new metal gig, and this guy was just getting us to put our middle fingers in the air. And having said that, I'm looking at your Skype avatar, and it is you giving the fingers. So you were up for it, but I felt a wee bit uncomfortable.
No, I wasn't feeling it at all, to be honest with you. Rise of the North Star were pretty much booked because of their Japanese sort of image, I suppose, but they're not Japanese. They're French. Yeah, strange. But they're more of a metalcore band, very much a one chord breakdown thing going on all the time.
But they were really bad metalcore. It wasn't even good metalcore. It
just didn't fit the style of the show at all, which was a shame, because we actually went to the first night of a 2-night sort of residency at the Islington Academy, and the second night a band called Outside the Coma were playing, who are Mikey Goodman's new band, and as you can imagine, a little bit more progressive. So I would have thought that would have fitted things a little bit better. But
you must be raging.
To be honest with you, I'm not too bothered at the moment. I haven't heard enough of their stuff to really sort of make a full judgment yet. But the couple of songs I've heard are interesting. Let's put it that way.
Have you got any good gigs coming up for later in the year?
I haven't got anything booked at the moment, to be honest with you. I know. I'm really kicking myself that I didn't book tickets for Korn. That recently happened because they were playing their debut album in full.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that's a damn good record in anybody's book. Like whatever you think about Korn, that debut is one of the defining albums of nu metal.
I don't think a lot about Korn that I can express in a clean podcast, but I would definitely give it another go.
Yeah.
What's the name of their debut album?
It is a self-titled album. So
it's just Korn.
Yeah,
sweet Korn. I've got loads of gigs lined up. 5th of August, I've got Nea Bliviscaris in London, which is pretty exciting because they're quite niche and Australian, so I wasn't expecting to see them.
Yep.
I've got Bad Religion on the 8th of August. That'll be my third BR gig. I have Bullet for My Valentine at the end of September. Day before my birthday, I'm going to see Abath in London, who is the singer from Immortal. So good mix of good mix of goodies.
Keeping it nice and diverse instead of just me just going to punk gigs all the time. But there you go.
You're so narrow-minded, and
oh, I love it.
Like, it's okay. We're here in this podcast, and we'll get your palate a bit diversified. You just need to hold out for a few more months.
Hey, I've got a diverse palate.
I'm only winding you up. Oh, I've got another gig. I'm going to see Leprous in October in London.
Oh,
and I love the new Leprous album. That's a good.
You've been bigging that up.
Yeah, there's a good. If you want something proggy but not metally at all, it's called The Congregation. It's a new Leprous album. It's one of my favourites of the year so far. Did you find out what the song of Withering to Death was yet?
I'm pretty sure it was Saku or Merciless Cult. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it's early on. I need to listen to the tracks again because it's trying to reference them is just a pain in the arse.
I can't remember if it was Have a Nice Day or Violently Murdered in Your Sleep, but it was one of those two. So that's us.
Yeah,
we are done, and you will hear from us again in what'll actually be 2 weeks to us, but it'll sound like 2 seconds thanks to the magic of audio editing.
Indeed, and so you'll join us again, please, because we're going to be talking about baby metal.
Oh no, you gave the game away. Oh no, wait, people will know that's going to happen because it's directly tuned onto this. Okay, yep, stay with us. It's baby metal. It sounds like it's going to be bad. It's going to be good. Stay with us.